do if believing one sentence could cost you your life? In the first century, to say Jesus is Lord was not inspirational. It was dangerous. For the men who followed him most closely, faith did not lead to comfort, but to execution. These were the 12 apostles, fishermen, a tax collector, a zealot, ordinary men who claimed they had seen Jesus alive after crucifixion. That single claim would place them on a collision course with the most powerful empire on earth. After the resurrection, the apostles did not remain in Jerusalem. Ancient sources record them spreading across the Roman world to Greece, Asia Minor, North Africa, and even India. They carried no weapons, no armies, only testimony. The earliest record of what followed comes from the Book of Acts, written within decades of the events. It describes arrests, beatings, and public threats, the beginning of systematic persecution. The first apostle to die is the only one whose death is recorded directly in the Bible. James, son of Zebedee, around 44 AD, in Jerusalem. He was executed by order of King Herod Agrippa. Acts chapter 12 states simply that James was killed by the sword. No legend, no poetry, just history. Herod's goal was clear: silence the movement before it spread. But James' death had the opposite effect. Instead of collapsing, the early church multiplied. Within a generation, Christianity reached Rome itself, and that alarmed the authorities. Christians refused to worship Roman gods or declare Caesar divine. That refusal was viewed as treason. One apostle stood at the center of this collision between faith and empire: Peter. Tradition places him in Rome during the reign of Emperor Nero, a time marked by brutality. Early Christian writers like Origen and Eusebius report that Peter was condemned to crucifixion. According to tradition, he requested to be crucified upside down, believing himself unworthy to die like Jesus. This was the cost of following Christ in the first century, and Peter would not be the last. T2, Andrew's cross in Greece, Philip's confrontation with pagan temples, Bartholomew's brutal end, Matthew's mission, and how the apostles carried the message beyond Rome. Even when escape was still possible, Peter was not alone. His brother Andrew followed the same path, but to a different land. Ancient tradition places Andrew in Greece, preaching in the city of Patras. There, sometime around 60 to 70 AD, Andrew was condemned to death. Unlike Jesus or Peter, Andrew was crucified on an X-shaped cross, now known as the St. Andrew's Cross. Early accounts say he remained alive for hours, continuing to preach to onlookers until his death. Christianity was no longer a local movement. It had become international and increasingly threatening to the religious order of the Roman world. Further east, Philip carried the message into Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. In the city of Hierapolis, Philip openly challenged pagan worship practices centered around local temples. Church tradition records that Philip was arrested and executed sometime in the mid-1st century, possibly by crucifixion or severe beating. His death reinforced a growing pattern. The apostles were not dying for power, but for proclamation. Perhaps the most disturbing tradition belongs to Bartholomew, also known as Nathaniel. Ancient accounts place him in Armenia, preaching among pagan communities. Their tradition states he was arrested and flayed alive, then beheaded, a form of execution reserved for enemies of the state. While gruesome, this account appears consistently across early church writings and regional traditions. Whether symbolic or literal, the message is clear. Preaching Christ often meant choosing suffering over silence. One apostle combined mission with authorship. Matthew, a former tax collector, is traditionally credited with writing the gospel that bears his name. Early sources place place Matthew in Ethiopia or Persia, preaching to distant cultures unfamiliar with Jewish tradition. There, around 60 AD, Matthew was reportedly killed, either stabbed or executed by local authorities. But no journey was more distant than that of Thomas. According to ancient Syriac sources and Indian Christian tradition, Thomas traveled the east, all the way to India. In 72 AD, near Mylapore, Thomas was killed by spear wounds for refusing to abandon his faith. From doubt to devotion, his journey ended far from Jerusalem, but firmly within history. Not all apostles were well known outside the early church. James the Less, believed to be the brother of Jesus and a leader in Jerusalem, remained at the center of Jewish life. Early historians such as Josephus record that James was executed around 62 AD after refusing to renounce his belief that Jesus was the Messiah. He was reportedly thrown from the temple area, then beaten to death, a public warning meant to discourage others. Jude, also called Thaddeus, carried the message into Mesopotamia and Persia. Church tradition holds that he was beaten or killed with an axe for preaching Christ in regions hostile to the new faith. Simon the Zealot, once associated with political rebellion, chose a different revolution. Ancient sources disagree on the details, but consistently report that Simon was executed, possibly by crucifixion or sword, for refusing to abandon his mission. After Judas' betrayal, Matthias was chosen to restore the 12. Tradition places his death in Syria or the Caucasus, where he was reportedly stoned and then beheaded. Another voice silenced, but not erased. One apostle did not die as a martyr. Judas Iscariot, overwhelmed by guilt after betraying Jesus, took his own life around 30 AD, as recorded in the Gospels. His end stands apart, a tragic contrast to the others. Only one apostle is believed to have died of old age. John, exiled to the island of Patmos, later returned to Ephesus, where he died around 100 AD. Even he suffered, imprisoned, exiled, and silenced, yet never executed. Out of 12 men, tradition holds that 11 were willing to die rather than deny what they claimed to have witnessed. No wealth, no power, no escape. Their deaths did not end the movement, they ignited it. And 2,000 years later, the question remains, what kind of truth is worth that cost?